Welcome, everybody. Today we have a very special guest.
I knew early on that I wanted to make movies.
It's such a difficult industry because there's a lot of luck involved.
I mean, look at American Werewolf in London, look at The Thing, look at The Fly. Look at these films that have really withstood the test of time.
I sculpted this Captain Kirk mask, and they didn't sell particularly well, but then John Carpenter came in, said, can you paint one white and spray paint his hair black?
I was maybe 9 or 10 years old, and it scared the living shit out of me.
You're just racking up these people that you grew up watching. They're in your films. Is that surreal?
There were 35 directors there. If there had been a bomb dropped on that restaurant, never another good horror movie.
Benet's Bloody Bits.
Welcome to Triple B. My name is Jason Benet, and welcome to another edition of Where's the Blu-ray? A look at films that I'd love to see released on Blu-ray discs that haven't been available for many years. Adrianne Barbeau is an actress that's been around for a long time. First time she caught my eye was in The Fog from 1980, alongside Jamie Lee Curtis and John Houseman. Later on, she would be in Escape from New York, along with Kurt Russell and Donald Pleasance. And at one point in time, she was married to John Carpenter. Following that, she did Creepshow, George Romero's fantastic omnibus anthology film, The Crate episode. She's such a bitch in that segment, and really, you kind of can't wait till she dies by the end of that show. And then years later, she worked with George Romero again on his segment of Two Evil Eyes. It was a two-story anthology, and one was directed by Romero. The other one was directed by Dario Argento. But in 1987, she was in a not seen by many people slasher film called Open House. And she basically plays a real estate agent in Beverly Hills. Her boyfriend is a psychologist who has a radio talk show, and he kind of does his thing over the airways. And what happens is there's a killer that's been knocking off lovely real estate agents. That same person that's been calling into the radio show, kind of giving tips about his motives and why is he's doing this. So it's kind of like ahead of its time. Is, there's a lot of reality shows now with people doing real estate flipping, and that market is so huge. I think back when this film got released, we didn't really know too much about it. But it's a slasher film, but it also plays part drama. When the movie works the best, it's upping the exploitation, the slasher elements, the violent parts. That's when the film works best. But when that's not happening, you almost forget you're watching a slasher film, and it really plays like a straight drama. So it's kind of like it's fighting itself within the script about what kind of film it wants to be. When it accepts the horror elements, then it totally works. But when it doesn't, it kind of does fall flat, and it's kind of weak at times. The movie is directed by Jog Mandra. He did a film called Hack-O-Lantern, which is available on Blu-ray through Massacre Video. That's a good trashy film. Open House, which I want to say it hasn't been released since VHS. It's possible it came out on DVD overseas in some weird, or possibly a bootleg form, cheesy flicks kind of thing. I first saw it probably around a decade ago. MGM had streaming rights that went to Netflix, so that's when I first caught it. I watched it again on YouTube as a refresher for this. It's not the greatest slasher film ever made, but 80s, that whole aesthetic, 35 millimeter look. Adrianne Barbeau has a bigger role than she has in a lot of the films that she's been in the past, so that's nice to see. Jog also did a lot of erotic thrillers in the 90s, like Night Eyes. That just seemed to be his cup of tea. That was kind of what propelled his career. He really only did 2 horror films, Open House and Hack-O-Lantern. So this film, I think, would do really well. I think it's going to be put out by Vinegar Syndrome on Blu-ray. It just feels like their kind of film, something they would put out. It's not Halloween. It's not Psycho. It's not those kind of films. It's kind of like a down and dirty, straight to video, made for the home video market of the late 80s. This is a 1987 film. So you kind of have to know what you're getting into with this kind of flick. But yeah, I did enjoy it. It's not the best thing in the world, but I am someone who has a weak spot for 1980s slasher films. It's always been my favorite subgenre of horror. So I'm a little bit forgiving than most other eras of films. But yeah, Open House, 1987, starring Adrianne Barbeau, directed by John Mundra. I think it's something a lot of people will like. I don't believe it's on Tubi, but you can watch a uploaded, not very good copy on YouTube. It does have some good skin. There's some good naked bodies and a couple creative kills when it gets there. But man, when those things are not happening on screen, you get kind of like this melodrama kind of movie. It kind of like slows it down. The pacing gets really altered when it does that. But I do enjoy the film. I would totally buy it in a heartbeat. You put it out with some fancy slipcover, with Adrianne Barbeau on it and some sort of weapon, from the film being used. The killer, spoiler ahead, I won't say too much about him. It's kind of, there's a red herring in the film where they kind of distract you with, oh, is this the killer, somebody from a rival real estate agency? But the guy that ends up being the maniac, the madman, it's kind of like upper class versus lower class. He just thinks that rich people and, all this money and people buying homes. So it's kind of a little heavy-handed in that sense. He kind of just, it's like a big mungy, looking dude. Is not going to win any originality points as far as what the killer looks like. But having said that, it still is an enjoyable mid-range slasher film from the 80s. But what do you guys think? Have you ever seen Open House? Have you ever heard of it? Is it something that you would blind buy? But I'm not a betting man, but if I had to put my chips on the table and put one boutique company to put it out on Blu-ray, my money's on Vinegar Syndrome. I wouldn't be surprised if we see it this year or possibly next year. But anyways, that's the end of this edition of Where's the Blu-ray? I'll be back. There's a lot of movies that are going to be part of this series. I just off the top of my head, there's 10 films that I'm going to do. I'm already creating thumbnails for them. And I think it's a fun retrospective. Also looking at possible physical media rights and when this movies might possibly come out. I think that's exciting. And I do think people dig this kind of format. So please like or comment below. Thank you for watching. Stay scared and talk to you soon.